This book is about how my career in the Marines brought me to this moment and prepared me to say yes to a job of this magnitude. The Marines teach you, above all, how to adapt, improvise, and overcome. But they expect you to have done your homework, to have mastered your profession. Amateur performance is anathema, and the Marines are bluntly critical of falling short, satisfied only with 100% effort and commitment. Yet over the course of my career, every time I made a mistake, and I made many, the Marines promoted me. They recognized that those mistakes were part of my tuition and a necessary bridge to learning how to do things right. Year in and year out, the Marines had trained me in skills that they knew I needed, while educating me to deal with the unexpected. So there's literally just a paragraph of this book that I've had for a little bit, Callsign Chaos, with Jim Mattis and Bing West. Bing West actually goes way back. I need to do more research on him. But his name recently popped up on a Jocko podcast, and I was like, oh, I thought maybe he was just someone who, and I hate to say just someone, but I didn't know the magnitude of his impact on history and the military in general. So I know I need to do more research on him, but for now I want to focus on this book. So I bought this book a little while ago. Or not like a year ago, but a few months ago. And then I had stopped. This was the last book I stopped at, really, as far as my reading goes. And now that I'm trying to get myself back in, and a way of me getting myself back in is by bringing it to the podcast so I can talk about it. Because a lot of times when I'm reading a book, it sparks these ideas. It sparks my thoughts, whether it's previous experiences that I've had or experiences that I'm going through now, or even like the part that I want to go through today. Is just three things that General Mattis, SecDef Mattis, I like General Mattis. Three things that he took from some of his early years as a Marine, as a Marine, and some leadership fundamentals that he calls the 3 C's. I do want to jump right in, but I want to give just that little paragraph because sometimes when you're so focused on a thing, whatever that thing may be, you never know what your superiors are looking at from you. What they're you should know what they expect from you, but I feel like sometimes they allow you to, again, Nick said he made many mistakes, so they allow you to make these mistakes, but as long as no one's going to die, as long as no one's life's at risk, they allow you as a leader to make these mistakes so that if you can learn from them, or if when that mistake happens, you show that you learned and you've figured out how to mitigate it, then that's where that promotion that he talks about comes in. I chose to find a home among warriors because I was drawn in by cocky, exuberant, devil-may-care spirit of grunts. I loved being with the troops, gaining energy from their infectious, often sardonic enthusiasms. We were all volunteers, and patriotism was found more in our DNA than our words. Most of us hadn't signed up because of a national cause. We seldom felt our country was united behind us on a war footing. And we identified principally with one another. We shared what F. Scott Fitzgerald called righteous excursions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. I never committed for the long term. My aims were modest. I thought maybe I'll make captain. It freed me up not to worry about my next command and focus instead on doing the best job I could with the one I had. Each week, the Fleet Marine Force was considered the last week of peace. As a gunnery sergeant put it, be ready. Next week we'll be in a fight. My early years with my Marines taught me leadership fundamentals summed up in the 3 C's. And that's really what I want to go through today as I adjust my mic annoyingly. All right, so let's jump right in. The first is competence. Be brilliant in the basics. Don't dabble in your job. You must master it. That applies at every level as you advance. Analyze yourself, identify weaknesses, and improve yourself. If you're not running 3 miles in 18 minutes, work out more. If you're not a good listener, discipline yourself. If you're not swift at calling in artillery fire, rehearse. Your troops are counting on you. Of course, you'll screw up sometimes. Don't dwell on that. The last perfect man on earth died on a cross long ago. Just be honest and move on. Smarter for what your mistake taught you. So yeah, I feel like I relate to competence more now than I did at previous jobs, because I learned through my nurses and some of the people that I've worked with very closely, is being the way I was gonna say Sir makes it the way General Mattis explains it here, where be brilliant in the basics, don't dabble in your job. Like I said, man. And I wish, because this is one of those things, the way it's worded here is one of those things that I wish I would have gotten better at an earlier age. During my college year when I was working retail and I was doing that thing, and once I moved on from college and I started diving into the music industry, getting deeper into my instrument, pedals that I wanted, the amps that I wanted. I was getting to that level of a high level of competence, and so again, and I feel like even as a guitar player, it's like I was really good at the basics. Obviously I knew my scales. I could hear a pitch, and I could kind of jump in. I feel very confident. Even now, I feel confident when I'm listening to a song. I have my guitar out. It's like I can hear someone singing. It's like I can get. I don't have perfect pitch, but I can get very close as far as the key, and then from there I can, again, knowing my scales, knowing the patterns of those scales. It's helped me even now. And then moving on to like healthcare. It's like being very good at like doing vitals. Baby vitals are so essential, because obviously for adults too, but for kids, it's very easy to give too much medicine. You don't want to do that. It's very heartbreaking. It's not the word. It gets under my skin when I see. Because again, and in reading this, that's why I felt drawn to bring this part of, and this is very early in the book. You can see, this is very early in the book where I'm speaking out of or reading out of, but it's very easy to just kind of bypass, kind of autopilot vitals, and in the case of a hospital, vitals and certain things, because you do it so often. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this and that, but when you have those critical patients coming in, you have an ambulance. It's like, hey, you're knocking out all the basic stuff first, because that's what's gonna let you go on to the next thing, and then wait for your doctor to let you know what you need to do. Sometimes you can. Sometimes there are some things that you can just start doing without immediate order. Example EKGs and certain things like that, where it's not really invasive to the skin, but you can get those things started for the doctor, so that even as they come in, whenever that is in the timeline, you're already passing this information. Hey, this is good. Hey, this is how your heart look. Hey, you're already passing this information. And then the doctor starts being able to use their knowledge and their thought processes to work on this patient. So again, yeah, competence. Be brilliant. At least that's what I'm trying to bring for today. Is being brilliant in the basics. Whatever it is you're doing. It can be in the hospital. It could be music. It could be you're working for a lawyer. You're working. Imagine working with money. Being able to count. That's one thing I got to do. I guess that's one thing I could bring that I did learn. Honestly, thanks to my parents and pushing me to pushing me to be very good at math, kind of foreshadowed the rest of my what I will acknowledge as success of being able to do things kind of fast, but accurate. Was it? I don't even want to say because I'm gonna butcher the saying, but smooth has it slow is no smooth is fast, slow is fast. No, I don't know. I'm not to look. Actually, let me look it up right now because it's gonna annoy me. Um, it's like smooth is fast, slow is fast. No, I'm gonna like I said, I'm gonna butcher this. Hold on. Lose my space. Because it is gonna annoy me. Slow. Come on. That's not what I'm looking for. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. That's the one. Yeah. And really, yeah. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. That's the one I was looking for. And so being able to do that, it's like, yeah, I was able to look, to be able to help manage a safe of money, and then move on. Really that those little things did help me promote. But to stay on topic, because I want to move on to the next C. Is I think one way to also do that is have pride in whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that you're wanting to learn. It'll go a long way if you enjoy it, because then you actually want to be good at those basics to then be able to move on and not just look at your job as a place that's going to give you money for work. We're definitely falling into this. I'm going to call it a trap of this trap of just working for money and then not even. I mean, you don't have to enjoy every single day, but at this point, I'm seeing it where it's a daily thing of people not even doing that. They're not even putting that effort into their work. So yeah, we can move on now to the next C. Yeah, I kind of spent a little bit longer than I wanted to, but that's fine. Second is caring. To quote Teddy Roosevelt, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. In a family, you watch out for your younger brother. You're interested in him, how he grows, how he learns, who he wants to be. When your Marines know you care about them, then you can speak bluntly when they disappoint you. They are young, but they did volunteer for the Marines, so don't patronize them. They know you're not in a life insurance company. Be honest in your criticism, but blow away the bad behavior while leaving your manhood intact. Show no favoritism, value initiative and aggressiveness above all. It's easier to pull the reins back than to push a timid soul forward. Consistently maintain a social and personal distance, remembering that there is a line you must not cross, but you should come as close to that line as possible without surrendering 1 ounce of your authority. You are not their friend. You are their coach and commander, rewarding the qualities essential to battlefield victory. You get to know them as individuals, what makes them tick, and what their specific goals are. One is striving to make corporal, another needs a letter of recommendation for college, another is determined to break 18 minutes for 3 miles. A Marine knows when you are invested in his character, his dreams, and his development. Men like that won't quit on you. That one's personally the most important for me, because it's very, you can tell when someone cares, and you can tell. Okay, I'm speaking about this from my perspective, so I can tell when you care about that person. I can tell when you care about your job. And one thing I've learned now that I've had a couple of teams under me, I use those words very literal because that's just the way it was the way it is in the hierarchy, but there's very much that center ground, trying to push that, it says come as close to that line as possible without surrendering your authority. It's like, hey, yes, I have a job that I need to do, but just know that you are important to me, and letting my team know, hey, there is a, like, the way I imagine this too is commander's intent. That's the way that, to me, that's the similar wording to it. That I think that's what General Mattis means here. That Jocko would say is set your commander's intent, but also let your personnel know that you actually care about what they want, and what their interests are. Because when you do build those bonds, you build those interests. Yes, you're developing trust and you're developing a relationship, really. But like General Mattis, at the very end, so men like that won't quit on you when they genuinely know that you care, you give a shit. That's probably the biggest thing, because again, I've seen it now where there's people that come in and out, and I'm like, but I don't feel like you care. You're here. People show face just to give the image that they care, but then they're off to the next thing or whatever. And yeah, that's as far as I want to go with that. It's very inherent for me. Is it inherent? No, it's not coherent. Inherent? Maybe it's inherent for me. It's very second nature. It's very much in my gut. I can tell, and I trust it. I really, especially when it comes to that, when it comes to trusting your team and letting your team know, hey, I trust you, but don't break that trust either. Because there's that balance. I'm not saying there's not a balance. There's definitely a balance of like, hey, I'm giving you this leeway. I'm letting you do X, Y, and Z, and I'll be able to bring stories later on. But for now, as far as this book and moving on with this conversation, there's very much a ground of like, hey, I give a shit about you. I'm gonna trust you, but I need you to also trust me in doing what's best for you. But then I need the best from you as well, because I will give you my best. And it's giving them the reassurance, like, hey, you again. I'm reiterating. I'm going in circles, but it makes a difference. It makes a difference when you ask them, hey, how'd your weekend go? Hey, are you into football? Hey, are you into baseball? You start finding out, what they're like. Hey, you're going to college. What classes are you taking? I'm personally very interested in that. Seriously, I ask some of my new friends and colleagues all the time, like, oh, how's class going? What are you learning? Are you learning anything? Are you enjoying what you're learning? Things like that. It makes a difference. It makes a difference, and it's like, yes, I'm doing it because it's like the right thing to do, but I actually care. I actually care about what that person is doing with their life outside of work, because it matters. Third and last one is conviction. This is harder and deeper than physical courage. Your peers are the first to know what you will stand for, and more important, what you won't stand for. Your troops catch on fast. State your flat-ass rules and stick to them. They shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. At the same time, leaven your professional passion with personal humility and compassion for your troops. Remember, as an officer, you need to win only one battle for the hearts of your troops. Win their hearts and they will win the fights. Competence, caring, and conviction combine to form a fundamental element shaping the fighting spirit of your troops. Leadership means reaching the souls of your troops, instilling a sense of commitment and purpose in the face of challenges so severe that they cannot put into words. So yeah, and the conviction, it's execution. It's executing on what you say you're gonna do. It's okay. And in this part, as an officer, you need to win. You need to win only one battle for the hearts of your troops, and when you execute on your commanders, and you don't. And the thing is that you don't have to be in the military for this. You definitely don't. You don't have to be in the military to use these rules and these thoughts. Especially the overall 3 rules of competence, caring, and conviction. And conviction being the last one, because that's where you're showing through action. You're sticking up for your team. If you can put yourself on the opposite and thinking about a time that you weren't stuck up for by your manager, by your boss, whoever that is, whenever that was, previous job and your current job, whenever that was, you take that into account. It's like, oh, because then what I do is like, oh yeah, I don't want to be like that. I remember what it felt like for my boss not to stick up for me in this certain situation, or my immediate team lead or whoever, my immediate superior didn't stick up for me when I was in the right to the boss, right? That's just to give a blatant, very vague example. But if you can remember that and kind of put your emotions aside just a little bit, that conviction will and then if you so that when you have your team, when you're in that hot seat, you're like, oh yeah, I remember what that felt like for me. I won't let that happen to you, but actually don't let that happen to them. Because I wish I could explain the feeling better via this, this podcast and this episode. And maybe as I develop more and I continue going through this book, but then going through my life, I can bring more concrete. Yes, where I was thinking cement, like cement. Like what the heck do I mean by cement? More concrete things of matters or situations that come up where it's like, man, I wish they would have stuck up for me, or man, like because essentially you then feel alone. We could argue that you feel alone when your team and then your team leader, superior, your boss, whoever doesn't stick up for you to the next person or to a client, even worse, to a client. It's like saying you're in the right, saying no, I'm not saying obviously if you're in the wrong, it's like, okay, you have to take care, in my opinion, you take care of it in house and you learn from that situation. But as long as you are in the right, when you have that team lead, when you have that superior, when you have those bosses that stick up for you, and then and maybe you could have approached the situation, maybe it was an argument, maybe you were wrong and they were right, but your point of view, maybe you didn't understand the concept. There's so many things that it could be, right? There's so many possibilities, and because again, this is very vague, but it's vague on purpose because I don't want this being obviously General Mattis, like the man, Mad Dog, the man. You could easily think, oh, this is military. It doesn't apply to civilians. It doesn't apply to me. I work at the post office. Oh, buddy, it doesn't matter if you work with post office, hospital, lawyer, donut shop. It doesn't matter. You can definitely apply competence, caring, and conviction wherever you are. And that's why I wanted to bring this human with, like, cause again, I was kind of going through, and I mentioned, last episode where it's like, I really need to go through some of this stuff because in my eyes, it is important that, cause this at least gives some type of a format to go by whenever we're in a pinch, whenever we do have a team and we need to lead them. And it's like, man, I don't like, I was given this job. I kind of don't know how, I kind of don't know how to do it. I kind of don't know what to do. This is one way to kind of detach yourself and think about, okay, am I competent in my job? Can I do what I'm asking that person to do? Yes or no? Hopefully it's a yes. Okay, cool. Do I genuinely care about my team? Not only because I should, but like you should. I was trying to think of like a yes or no type of question or type of outcome, but because if you don't, then the argument could be, should you move on to a new job? Should you get out of wherever you are right now? If you don't care about the people with you, if you don't care about your team, ask to move to like a different division or area or whatever that may look like. Because then you won't have the ability to have conviction and accomplish the tasks that are given to you and your team. Again, it doesn't matter if you're in a donut shop, doesn't matter if you're in a hospital, lawyer, daycare. There's a bunch of facets. There's a bunch of places that these three things can definitely take places in the right word I'm looking for. But these are three things that you can use no matter what you do for work. Now obviously, let's say you're a vlogger or YouTuber. A lot of these YouTubers that I'm following now, a lot of them have teams now. It's like, okay, cool. How are they handling those teams, and are they sticking around? Are these new employees that they probably like production, they like being behind the scenes, like doing certain X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, how long are they sticking around? And if they're not sticking around, why aren't they sticking around? Are you competent in your job? Do you care for them, and are you showing conviction for what you all stand for? That's one way I'm glad I'm able to kind of bring this full circle. So yeah, competence, caring, and conviction. Simple, not easy. I feel like in the moving with life, everything I bring in, I will resort to the simple but not easy theme. As Jocko has put in extreme ownership, but simple, not easy. Because then you have to ask yourself, if you're not competent, well then that's when you need to be real with yourself. If you're not caring about the team, it's like, well then what are you doing here? And then conviction, because I feel like if you don't have the competence or caring of your team, there's no way you can provide the conviction to accomplish the tasks that are given to you. So yeah, those are three things. There's one last thing. We have a few minutes left before we close out this episode, and I want to jump into it because I saw it on Instagram, and I'll put in the profile that, and I'm gonna put the picture here in a second, and you'll see that this is literally a kid, and I'm gonna read the caption because it's kind of crazy, and then we're gonna close up, and then we'll move on to next week. All right, so with the attack of Pearl Harbor at age 12, Calvin Graham left home to enlist. At 5'2" and 125 pounds, Calvin didn't look anything close to enlistment age, so he practiced shaving and tried to deepen his voice. He forged his mother's signature on the enlistment papers, but they needed to be notarized. He and some friends knew a local innkeeper who kept a notary stamp at his front desk. The kids reported a fire on an upper floor and grabbed the stamp when the hotel manager rushed upstairs. Calvin passed the medical doctor's examination without a hitch, but then a dentist took a look in his mouth and saw baby teeth. Calvin, you're 12, he said. Get out of here. Yeah, Calvin responded, but those kids ahead of me were only 14 and you passed them. If you don't pass me also, I'll go to your superior. After only 3 weeks of boot camp, Calvin got trained as an anti-aircraft gunner and was assigned to the battleship USS South Dakota. Calvin saw his first action just southeast of Guadalcanal off the Santa Cruz Islands when the South Dakota shot down 26 Japanese planes attempting to sink the Enterprise. 3 weeks later, the South Dakota joined the 4-day naval battle of Guadalcanal, where it fought in ramming range with 8 Japanese destroyers. Calvin's ship took an enormous beating with major damage, 40 killed and 180 wounded. Oh man. Calvin had been manning the guns when he caught shrapnel in the face and arm. Some of his teeth were knocked out, yet along with his gunnery officer, one Sergeant Shriver, Calvin began tending the worse off. I took belts off the dead and made tourniquets for their living, and gave them cigarettes and encouraged them all night, he later said. It was a long night. It aged me. I didn't do any complaining because half the ship was dead. The South Dakota limped back to the Brooklyn Navy Yard as the newsreel cameras captured its return. Back in Crockett, Texas, Calvin's mother saw the footage and exclaimed, "That's my son." Calvin was honorably discharged once his mother came forward with his true age. In 1948, he joined the Marine Corps. Can you imagine, male or female? I don't care. But do you think you at 12 years old would volunteer? So, because there's a number of us that were close to 12 years old when the 9/11 attacks happened. Obviously, there's more technology now. There's a deeper database as far as like where you're from, what your age is, all those things, right? And so, but when I read this, I said, I'm going to just read and again, this is stuff these are cool things that I follow on Instagram, because I run across something like this where I'm like, imagine being 12 years old and volunteering to go. And we think of 9/11, our current, and given the current, now we're here 20 years later, being 12 years old and righteously volunteering to go fight the war. And Guadalcanal, obviously, there's a bunch of Marines that were, 1st Marine Division was over there. That's where you start getting your John Baslones and your Eugene Sledge with the old breed. You start getting a lot of those guys that were made, not made, they became legends. And that's why they're still talked about now. I can't remember last time I brought up with the old breed, but I know I have, and it's been a minute. I don't have that book with me, but definitely have talked about Guadalcanal and the books that I read and Jago podcast and all. It's primarily because of Jago podcast. But as we close out today's episode, we can think about what sacrifices we're willing to make, not only for the bigger picture, but for, even if it's our picture, whatever it is for us, whatever that is for us. 12 years old. And I was like, that's my son. Imagine looking at, okay, now if you're a parent, or if you want to become a parent, imagine your 12-year-old son, or imagine when your kid turns 12 and being like, that's my son on the freaking TV. I'd probably be pissed, but also happy that he made it home, especially after this story of, hearing that, basically half his ship was killed or wounded. And then the icing on the cake, the cherry really at the end, where in 1948 he joined the Marine Corps. So he was going. He was going. No one was going to stop him. It was just a matter of time. He just happened to get away with it early on. And it's interesting that the freaking dentist was like, "Oh, you're going to tell my superior? Okay, I guess I'll let you sign up." Different times. Definitely different times. So yeah, that's all I got for you for today. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you learned something. I am learning and trying to grasp this stuff as I'm reading it and trying to talk about it. They kind of go hand in hand for me because it helps me retain it better. So if you have a team, lead from the front, take care of your team, take care of yourself. Don't forget about yourself. Take care of yourself. Teach the way General Mattis says, coach and command. If that's your situation, ask for help, whether it's help for you, for your situation, help with your team, help with learning something, trying to develop new skills, whatever that may look like. And yeah, that'll be it. We'll see you all very, very soon.